The voice inside the playground. Before the world fell into the glow of phones and screens, summer nights used to belong to us. I was 13, and back then, the outdoors felt like an extension of our homes. If we weren't riding our bikes, we were sneaking out, daring each other to do stupid things, or just wandering for the sake of wandering. There was a park down the block from my childhood home, a place that, during the day, was filled with kids, dogs, baseball practice, and casual joggers. But at night, it became ours. No neighbors peeking from windows, no parents yelling for us to keep it down. Just trees surrounding the place like a natural fence, and a single streetlight flickering above the swings. That Saturday evening started like any other. My friends and I had spent most of the day biking around town. By evening, only 3 of us were left: me, Tony, and Rob. We'd just gotten kicked out of Tony's backyard because his mom insisted we were being obnoxiously loud. So naturally, we took our bikes and rode straight to the park. The air that night felt cooler than usual, the kind of crisp silence that makes soft noises sound louder. We parked our bikes by the bleachers and climbed up onto the playground structure. The elevated platforms gave us a hidden place to sit, talk, and look out at the empty field. We had barely settled down when Tony suddenly shushed us. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. We all paused. The night was quiet, no cars, no wind, no footstep. After a few seconds of silence, we shrugged it off, until another sound echoed from somewhere below us. This one was louder. A dull thud, like someone had stepped hard on one of the metal platforms. Rob sat up straighter. Okay, that wasn't one of us. We scanned the playground. The shadows were thick between the swings and underneath the slide, but nothing seemed out of place. After a short search, we convinced ourselves it was just our imaginations playing trick. So we sat back down, legs dangling over the edge. But then we heard it, the voice. It echoed faintly from inside the long metal spiral slide beside us. Soft, high-pitched, unmistakably a child. "Hello." We froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. "Dude, what was that?" Rob whispered. A kid's voice at nearly 10 p.m.? And no footsteps climbing up? No rustling? Nothing? Tony nudged me. "Ask again." My throat tightened, but I forced myself to get up and kneel beside the slide's opening. "Is someone in there?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. For a second, nothing happened. Then the voice came again, clearer this time, echoing softly through the twisting metal. "Hello." A child. Definitely a child. Maybe 3 or 4 years old. Too young to be alone out here. Too small to have climbed silently. My heart began pounding hard in my chest. I told myself maybe a toddler had wandered in. Maybe they were stuck. Maybe their parent was nearby. So I did the stupid thing. I climbed into the slide. The metal felt icy. Every inch of the descent felt like I was expecting a face, a hand, a foot, anything, to appear around the bend. But when I slid out the bottom, the landing area was empty. Completely empty. I stood up quickly, scanning the entire playground. Nothing. No child. No parent. No footsteps in the mulch. Not even the crackle of someone running away. Just stillness. Tony and Rob stared down at me from above, their faces pale. "You see anything?" Tony called. I shook my head. And then, the voice returned. "Catch me." From inside the slide. From behind me. From nowhere at all. We didn't think. We didn't question. We didn't look back. We ran. The woman at the gate. We didn't just run. We blasted out of that park like something was chasing us, even though none of us dared to look back to confirm it. Our bikes were lying in a messy heap by the bleachers, and I don't think any of us even mounted them fully. We just kicked off the ground and pedaled as fast as our legs allowed. The wind stung my eyes. My chest burned. But the thought of hearing that voice again, soft, playful, inviting, was enough to push every bit of adrenaline in my body into overdrive. We screeched into my backyard a minute later, nearly toppling off our bike. My house was the closest, and we all knew my dad would be asleep by now. So we whispered, trying to calm down, catching our breath behind the old wooden fence. What was that? Rob rasped, leaning forward with his hands on his knees. Tony shook his head repeatedly. A kid can't disappear that fast. It's impossible. You saw the ground, I said. No footsteps. No marks. No nothing. We tried to come up with explanations. A prank, a hidden speaker, another kid hiding behind the trees. But every idea fell apart instantly. None of it made sense. The voice sounded so close. So real. And yet there had been no one. We sat in silence for a bit, still shaken. The backyard felt safer than the park, surrounded by high fences and the warm glow of the kitchen light seeping through the window. But the safety didn't last long. A sudden knock broke the silence, a sharp, deliberate knocking on the backyard gate. 3 knocks. Even. Calm. Like someone asking to enter. We all froze. What was that? Rob whispered. My mouth felt dry. I forced out, "Who's there?" For a moment there was only silence. Then a woman's voice answered. Hello. We stiffened instantly. Her voice was soft but wrong. Too calm, too steady, too bright for the situation. And it wasn't anyone we knew. Then she spoke again. Were you boys just at the park? We exchanged terrified glances. How would she know that? We didn't walk home, we flew home. Nobody on foot could have followed us that quickly. My heart hammered against my ribs as I crept toward the small crack between the gate and the fence. I hesitated, then leaned in just enough to see. And there she was. A middle-aged woman, standing on the other side of the gate, inches from the wood, as if she'd been waiting to look directly through the crack. Her eyes met mine with an unblinking intensity, and her smile stretched wide, too wide. A stiff, unnatural grin that didn't touch her eyes. It was like she knew exactly where I'd look. I stumbled back immediately. No, sorry. No, we weren't there. She didn't move. Didn't blink. Just kept smiling. Are you sure? She asked sweetly, tilting her head slightly like she was listening to something behind us. Tony stepped forward and called out, voice shaking, we said no. There was a pause. Then the woman said, all right, thanks anyway. But her shadow didn't leave. Her silhouette didn't move. She just stood there. I slowly leaned back toward the crack. She was still staring directly at me. Not moving. Not blinking. Just smiling. That was all it took. We bolted inside through the back door, slamming it behind us. My heart hadn't slowed since the park, and now it beat so violently I could barely breathe. We didn't talk much after that. We just sat in the dark basement, trying to be quiet, too afraid to go near the windows. The woman's voice kept replaying in my head, her tone, her timing, the way she somehow knew where we'd been. Eventually, my friends fell asleep on the floor. I didn't sleep at all, because every few minutes, I swore I heard soft footsteps outside. Pacing. Waiting. Not at the park, but right behind my backyard fence. The following morning felt wrong from the moment I opened my eyes. There's a certain heaviness that lingers after a night you can't explain, a silence that feels too deliberate, like the world is waiting for you to notice something. I woke up on the floor of my living room, the 3 of us having eventually passed out while trying to stay awake and calm. Tony and Rob were both asleep, curled up under blankets my mom had left out, unaware of how terrified I had been for hours after they drifted off. But what jolted me upright wasn't a nightmare. It was the sound of the backyard gate creaking open. My heart froze. No one should have been back there. Not at 6 a.m., not on a Sunday, not quietly like that. I tiptoed to the window and peeked through the blinds with 2 fingers. The gate was open just an inch. Just enough for someone to slip inside. For a moment, nothing moved. No footstep. No shadow. But then I saw it. A single footprint in the dirt, right where the woman had been standing the night before. Fresh. Deep. Pointing toward the house. My breath caught in my throat. I quietly shook Tony and Rob awake, whispering for them not to make a sound. Their groggy confusion evaporated when they saw my expression. We didn't go outside. We didn't investigate. We didn't even speak above a whisper. We sat together in silence, listening. Nothing else happened. But that footprint burned itself into my memory. Small, but not child-sized, not adult-sized either. Something unsettlingly in between. We decided to stick together the entire day. None of us wanted to be alone, not after the park slide voice, not after the woman at the gate, and definitely not after seeing that footprint. Every time a floorboard creaked or a bird landed on the fence, I jumped. By afternoon, we convinced ourselves it was over. Sleep deprivation, adrenaline, and fear had made everything worse than it was. We tried to laugh about it, eating cereal in the backyard like it was a normal summer day. That's when Rob froze mid-bite. "Guys, look." He pointed toward the gate. A single object now hung from the latch. A small plastic toy, the kind a toddler might carry. It was a faded red car with a broken wheel, dangling from a piece of dirty string tied into a knot. None of us had seen it there earlier. The silence that followed was suffocating. Tony whispered, "Someone came back." I didn't want to believe that. But the toy swayed gently in the wind, as if it had only been placed there moments ago. A cold sensation crawled up my spine, slow, deliberate, and undeniable. For the next week, everything changed. I'd hear tapping at the back fence at random hours, soft, rhythmic like knuckles brushing wood. Twice, I heard the faintest childlike giggle. Once, at 3 a.m., I heard a whisper so close to my window that I stopped breathing. "Catch me." I didn't look. I couldn't. My parents brushed everything off as kids messing around. But kids don't leave footprints. Kids don't grin through cracks in gate. Kids don't stay silent in slides until they speak directly into your ear. A few days later, the park was suddenly taped off with police ribbon. Tony texted me a picture, something about park maintenance and restricted access. But that didn't make sense. They never closed that park. Not once in my entire childhood. He zoomed in on the tape. Behind it, barely visible, was the same twisting metal slide. Something inside it was covered with a tarp. Something long. Something human-shaped. I deleted the picture immediately. My brain refused to accept what my eyes saw. I never returned to that park again. None of us did. Even now, years later, a whisper of a child's voice still slips into the back of my thoughts whenever I'm near a playground. Sometimes at night, I dream about the slide. How empty it looked, and how wrong it felt. And sometimes, when I'm walking home through my yard after dark, I swear I hear the faint echo of a small voice behind me. "Catch me."